Hi, I'm Marius from MWS Photography, and welcome back to another episode of Digital Photography Today, the show where you will learn how to become the master of your camera. Now, today's topic is on bracketing, and I'm sure you've taken a picture in the past where you were maybe in shutter or aperture priority, and everything on the camera said the picture should be normal. You looked at all your settings, all should be great, but then the image was overexposed or underexposed. Now, in a future episode, we are going to discuss how your camera meters light, so that you understand why sometimes the camera overexposes or underexposes. But for now, we are going to keep things still basic, and we are going to learn what the bracketing function can do. Now, bracketing is also used for stuff like HDR, HDR which means high dynamic range photography. We're also going to talk about that in a future episode. Now, what bracketing does, it's a very cool insurance policy. Say you're out to a nice location, you're not sure if you're ever going to be here again, so you want to make sure you really get this picture perfect, but you're not sure about your exposure, and then also it's maybe so bright out that you can't see on the back of the screen, so you're really freaking out. What can you do? How can you take this picture and make sure you really get the exposure perfect? That's when you turn the camera's bracketing function on. So what bracketing does, it takes more than one image. You'll notice on the Canon PowerShot SX50HS, it allows you to take 3 images, one that's spot on, one that's overexposed, and one that's underexposed. And I'm going to show you how you set the camera on the Canon PowerShot, and you can even tell the camera how much overexposure and how much underexposure. So then you've got 3 images to choose from, and you can choose the one which has the best exposure. Now, sadly, the Nikon D3100 does not have a bracketing function. So it's sad because it's not such a big deal. I don't understand why they didn't put it in there. Obviously now to sell the more upgraded models, but it's not in there. So you can override that function by going to manual, but that's something we're going to talk about, I think, in another next or episode after that. We're going to talk about manual exposure. So then we can discuss that. But for now, we are going to use the Fuji S5 Pro. This one can go up to 9 images if I want to. So you can go perfect exposure plus 4 exposures to the plus side and 4 exposures to the minus side. That's 4 images overexposed and 4 images underexposed. So you've got 9 total images to choose which one you really want to use, and this makes this camera great for HDR. Like I said, something for another episode, but these are the 2 cameras that we are going to be working with. Now I'm going to show you how to set it on the camera, and then also we're going to go outside and we're just going to take a picture of a flower, basic flower, and then we're just going to over and underexpose it with the Canon PowerShot, so you can see how that works. And it's really very easy, and you've got much more flexibility and much more choices to the pictures that you want to choose. Okay, so let's first look at the settings on the Canon PowerShot. Okay, the first thing we need to do is to first press this function set button right here. It's going to take you to this menu, and then you go down to bracketing. Now you can see there BKT, and it says off, turns off bracketing. Then you press this arrow to this side, to the right side, or to the wheel to the right side, and it's going to show you AEB, which stands for automatic exposure bracketing. Just going to turn that menu back on again. Takes 3 shots at different exposures. Now when you press this display button, the DISP button right here, it's going to bring up this menu. Now this menu allows you to set how much overexposure. So by turning this wheel, you can see those orange pointers running on the screen. So this means one shot that's in the middle, it's the perfect exposure, and then one that's 1/3 of a stop overexposed and 1/3 of a stop underexposed. That's 2/3 over and underexposed. That's 1 full stop underexposed, and this is 2 full stops underexposed. I'm going to put it on 1 full stop overexposed, then I'm going to press the display button again. It takes you back. And then you can just turn the function, this menu off by pressing function set once again. There you go. Now you can see here in the corner that the exposure bracketing has been activated. Okay, as you can see, it's very easy to enable the function on the camera. Now let's look at the Fuji S5 Pro. This is basically the same as your Nikon camera. It's basically a Fuji camera built into a Nikon D200 body. So it's a Nikon body. You'll find on this camera the BKT button for bracketing is on the back here. On, for instance, your Nikon D7000, the bracketing button is on the front again. For Canon users, if you've got a Canon SLR camera, you will find an AEB, automatic exposure bracketing. Yeah, AEB, automatic exposure bracketing. And I'm not sure about on the body itself. I don't really shoot a lot of Canon SLR. But on the menu, there is an AEB function. You just go to there and you can, I know there's shortcuts. I have seen shortcuts on it, but I can't remember them now. So you can go to the menu and just go to AEB, and then you can set the same settings on there that I can do on this camera. So let's look at this camera settings quickly. On the Nikon SLR camera, it's really very easy to get the bracketing function activated. Right here at the back, there's a BKT button. On some of the cameras, there'll be one in the front. Just look where your camera, the BKT button on your camera is. Now, when you press and hold in that button, you're going to see the screen change in this section right here. Now, on the front, I've got a dial to turn right here, and at the back, I've got one to turn right here. So if you look at the screen, there's a 0.3. Now that means 1/3 of a stop. If I turn this wheel, we're going to go to 0.7. That's 2/3 of a stop. And if I turn further, we're going to get 1 full stop. So that's the same as on the Canon PowerShot when you had that 1 and 2. That's what that 1 stands for. Okay, now on the back here, I've got another dial. Now if I turn it like this, it's showing me 3 frames. So it's going to take 3 pictures, and you can see here, you can see there's the in the middle exposure, and there's the +1, and there's the -1. Now if I turn it again, there we can see it's taking 5 pictures. So it's taking the exposure in the middle, and then 1 at +1 and +2, and then also -1 and -2. If I turn it again, I'm getting 7 frames and then 9. So 9 is really awesome because it gives me 1 exposure in the middle, and then -1, -2, -3, and -4. And here it gives me +1, +2, +3, and +4 as well. This is what I like to use for HDR photography. Like I said, in a future episode, keep watching. Okay, so this is really easy. I've got a lot of flexibility to quickly, on the go, with these 2 dials, change how I want this bracketing function to work. Okay, I've got the Canon PowerShot SX50HS here on a tripod. On the front of the camera, I've fitted a 67mm +10 macro lens filter. I'm going to discuss that in a future episode called Macro on the Cheap, so keep watching. It just allows me to go closer, but I still have some space in there to get some light in. Okay, so let's first turn on the bracketing function. I'm going to go function set. I'm going to go to bracketing. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to press the display. But first I'm going to take an image, as you can see here, with only 1/3 of a stop over an underexposure. I'm going to focus. The wind is blowing a little. I just have to recompose a little. Okay, I'm going to focus. I'm going to shoot. You can see it takes the 3 images. Okay, so there we have +1/3 of a stop overexposed. Here we have -1/3 of a stop underexposed. And here we've got the perfect exposure. Okay, so let's go back to bracketing and let's make it a full stop over and underexposed. I'm going to focus, I'm going to shoot. Now, when we go to our preview, you'll see here we've got a full stop overexposed. Here we've got a full stop underexposed. And here we've got a perfect exposure. Let's go back to bracketing and let's go all the way to +2 and -2. Focus and shoot. And as you can see, the +2, it's almost completely washed out, very little detail there. The -2, very dark. And here we've got again our perfect exposure. So that's bracketing on the SX50HS. Okay, I hope you're now more confident by getting that perfect exposure, by knowing that you have an insurance policy. You've got bracketing. So go out and test it out and see what you can achieve with it. And then if you have any photographic questions or camera related questions, please send it to askmwest@mwest.co.za, and then we'll try to answer that for you in a future episode. And then also, if you haven't subscribed yet, why? Click the button and do it now. It's just the right thing to do. It make your life better. Trust me. Click on it, click on it, click on it. Okay. Right, so that's all for this week's episode, and then I'll see you next week